An absolutely shocking story out of Mexico. A 14-year-old girl is dead just days after her plastic surgeon stepfather allegedly performed multiple surgeries on her. And her father reportedly saw the scars during funeral services. So now he's demanding an investigation into the doctor for allegedly doing the surgery and his ex-wife for allowing it. And he wants to know if the ill-advised surgeries contributed to his daughter's death. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is a Law&Crime legal alert. There are allegations claiming that the online apps DraftKings and FanDuel are engineered for addiction. These multi-billion-dollar companies allegedly continue to put profit over safety. Every free bet, every boosted parlay, and every small payout triggers a dopamine rush that creates dependency and turns harmless fun into a detrimental habit. That's the allegation. They keep you hooked, chasing impossible wins, and can trap you in a cycle that can lead to significant financial loss and, by the way, ultimately damage mental health. While our legal sponsors are taking on the online gambling industry to potentially get compensation for all of those who may be impacted. If you or a loved one has suffered addiction, financial hardship, mental health issues due to sports betting apps, then visit gamblinglawsuits.com/sidebar to take a short quiz and check your eligibility to file a claim. This story has ignited a firestorm across the world, and I will tell you, it is an unthinkable situation. A young teenager is dead, and plastic surgery may have been a contributing factor. This is a rapidly developing story out of Durango, Mexico, and we want to talk about the very latest that is coming from this based on reporting from various Latin American outlets. So, on September 20th, Carlos Arellano received devastating news that his daughter, Paloma Nicole Arellano Escobedo, was dead. But it is the circumstances around her death that are maybe murky at best, and it was a discovery that was made at the funeral home that has turned this entire story, this entire case on its head. According to MVS Noticias, Carlos posted on social media that he'd been told about a week earlier, on September 12th, that Paloma Nicole was going on a trip to the mountains with her mother, his ex-wife, Paloma Jasmine. But then, according to reporting from Publimetro, he gets a call from her on September 15th claiming that Paloma Nicole had been diagnosed with COVID-19 and was in the hospital. Although it's unclear if she was in an actual hospital or a private clinic of some kind. The reporting is kind of mixed on that. But Carlos and some family members of his side of the family, they rushed to the hospital where Paloma Nicole had been put into an induced coma, was intubated. This is according to Publimetro. And the outlet reports that when she died on September 20th, her mother and her mother's new partner, they were the ones who took care of the arrangements, quickly whisking her away to a funeral home. Okay, that's the allegation. Now, in fact, according to reporting from El Siglo de Durango, the local prosecutors said that 911 got a call about the death of a minor, so they went to investigate, but the body had already been taken away. Now, according to Carlos, the cause of death for his daughter was listed as an illness, so allegedly some sort of respiratory disease, possibly related to COVID-19. And while the death certificate reportedly mentioned a cerebral edema, hypoxic encephalopathy, and bradycardia, El Siglo de Durango reports that both parents agreed with the death certificate at the time. But that soon changed. When Carlos arrives at the funeral home, he discovers this awful secret, that his daughter appeared to have had major surgery. The Arizona Republic news outlet here in the United States included a statement, reportedly from Carlos via the prosecutor's office in Durango, and that statement says, quote, "At the funeral, some relatives told me her breasts were larger than what she had before, and when I mentioned it to her mother, she told me it wasn't true, that she didn't know anything. That night, I asked her mother to leave the room so I could talk to the girl to say my goodbyes. For some reason, she didn't want to. I managed to convince her and her entire family to leave, and they did. My sister, my sister-in-law, my mother, and I stayed inside. They examined my daughter, and sure enough, she had breast implants. We have photographs of the implants and the scars." But in an interview with a popular content creator named Jorge Octavio Arroyo Martinez, who uses the moniker Mr. Doctor online, Carlos apparently revealed even more shocking information that not only had his 14-year-old daughter been given breast implants, but apparently she had undergone liposuction and a Brazilian butt lift, also known as a BBL. So according to Carlos, the surgeries were a, quote, gift for this teen in advance of her 15th birthday. And they were allegedly performed by Dr. Victor Manuel Rosales Galindo, Paloma Nicole's stepfather. But Carlos says he never consented to these procedures, and he never would have. According to his Facebook page, Galindo has his own plastic surgery practice and also works out of La Hospital de Paz in Durango. He's posted photos of himself performing all kinds of plastic surgeries, and he's also posted photos of his wife and stepdaughter, Paloma Nicole, calling them his princesses. He was reportedly a member in good standing of the Mexican Council of Plastic, Aesthetic, and Reconstructive Surgery. Now, I will tell you, he has since been suspended, according to TMZ. MSV Noticias reports that Galindo allowed his wife, Paloma Jasmine, to work alongside him during medical procedures and surgeries, despite, by the way, her not having studied medicine. And when Carlos discovered scars on his teen daughter's body, he immediately raised alarms. He went to the prosecutor's office demanding an investigation. Now, Paloma Nicole's body was taken for an autopsy, and the results are still pending. They're expected to be released soon. Geraldo de Mexico reports that Carlos told Mr. Doctor that his ex-wife insisted she did nothing to Paloma Nicole and maintained that the girl died from a severe case of coronavirus. As of now, the local Durango prosecutor, Sonia Yadira de la Garza Fragosa, has said that both Galindo and Paloma Nicole's mother are under investigation. In a statement that was translated from Spanish, Fragoso said, "We are investigating a probable lack of care on the part of the mother, a criminal offense contemplated in our code, placing a minor who is under her care and custody in risky situations. We are also reviewing whether there was malpractice in the surgery performed on the teenager. There could be a crime of negligent homicide and probably medical professional liability." All right, so to talk about these apparent allegations of malpractice, to talk about what might have happened to this young girl, what are the possibilities as this investigation is unfolding, I want to welcome back Coroner Dr. Naida Rutherford. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time. This is a shocking story to me. First of all, when you hear something about this and you're thinking, is it possible that there could have been complications that contributed to the death of this young girl from plastic surgery, what should we be thinking of?
Absolutely. We have a celebrity example of someone who died while undergoing plastic surgery procedures. Kanye West's mom died as a result of complications from receiving plastic surgery. So what would make someone think that a 14-year-old girl who's still developing would not possibly have complications? So you have possible breast augmentation, possible butt implants. From all of the stuff I've been seeing online, there seem to have been multiple surgeries that could have possibly taken place for this 14-year-old girl. And seeing a death certificate that says cerebral edema, well, I have lots of questions as an investigator, as a nurse practitioner, as a coroner, as a healthcare provider. There are so many things wrong with this case.
What does that mean? When the death certificate says cerebral edema, bradycardia, hypoxic encephalopathy, what are those? And does that mean they're contributed in any way? Could those be contributed in any way by complications with plastic surgery?
Well, one, you have to take a look at what this hypoxia is. So hypoxia is a lack of oxygen flowing through the bloodstream. And so you have a decreased level of oxygen, which when your brain has a decreased level of oxygen, it's going to try to do everything that it can do in the body to try to get oxygen there. But that overworking of the brain in the simplest form possible is going to cause that brain to swell. Also, when you have plastic surgery, there are certain rules that apply about the balance that you must have. So if this young girl at 14 years old, body still developing, is receiving any sort of IV fluids throughout this procedure, and either an overabundance or not enough, that salt level, that sodium level in her brain can cause that brain to swell. So we see this in patients who are dehydrated, but we also see it in patients who are overhydrated. So what were they doing during this procedure that could have caused her sodium balance to be off to cause something like cerebral edema. We know that she had some sort of respiratory failure because we see the hypoxia, but what was that from? She could have had a number of things that happened. Sometimes even if implants are too large for the chest that they're being placed in, that can cause a restriction of your breathing. So did she have hypoxia related to a restriction of her breathing? There are wraps that people have to be placed in once you've had this type of surgery. Was that restricting her breathing and no one noticed? She seemed to be such a petite young woman, and so many things could be wrong with this scenario.
And can you just elaborate one more time, at such a young age, why plastic surgery for someone that young is so concerning?
Well, one, the plastic surgery wasn't necessary for her life to be saved. So we see plastic surgery when someone has been in a traumatic accident, burns, car accidents, where they need some sort of surgical trauma, ICU care. So we can see plastic surgery during times like that. But this didn't seem to be the case here. She seemed to be a normal, healthy, thriving young woman. I don't know why anyone would approve plastic surgery on someone at this age. Her body is still developing. She's still going through the Tanner stages of development. She doesn't even know what her breasts will look like by the time she's 18 or 21. I certainly think this is an adult decision and something that really should not have happened.
So Durango's prosecutor appeared before officials this week to give an update on the case, and there have been allegations now of a cover-up of some kind, although by whom kind of remains unclear, because the prosecutor seemed to confirm that there was some apparent conspiracy, because at some point, per reporting from El Siglo de Durango, Carlos was sent a certificate indicating a positive COVID-19 test, which he sent to Paloma Nicole's school to explain her absence. Fregoso said that there are indications that their certificate was a forgery because it doesn't appear in her medical file, and the person who allegedly wrote it up has denied ever doing so to investigators. Let's start right here. Naida, could COVID-19 have caused a death like this?
Sure. You can acquire hospital infections, certainly being in the hospital. They have all sorts of respiratory precautions. They'll restrict your visits and all those things. But if she was positive for COVID, if this truly was a hospital acquired infection, respiratory infection, then she would have been on so many precautions. Her family would have had to glove up and gown up and mask up before they went into her room. Based on American standards, this is what should happen, right? There are restrictions to going into someone's room. But before you have surgery, you should also be tested. And no one's going to take you under the knife if you are positive for COVID. So again, that's a red flag for me. Why would you put someone under general anesthesia who is already infected with a respiratory illness that is known to be fatal? Again, all the red flags here.
Now, the rumors of a cover-up, they were also bolstered by the fact that Galindo's father is a prominent former judge in Durango. Fregoso insisted that no family members had intervened, but obviously people made connections here. The prosecutor also reported that Paloma Nicole was awake following the surgery, but then quickly deteriorated, was hospitalized. And Fregoso pointed out that between the time she was admitted to the time she was declared dead, she was attended to by multiple doctors and nurses and technicians. So I wonder, Dr. Rutherford, could her death be attributed to the cosmetic procedure, or did something happen in the hospital that caused her death?
The autopsy report on this is going to be so important. The dad needs to push for an autopsy to be performed. Even if a body has been embalmed, it can still receive an autopsy. And I think this is so important in this case. He needs to push for an autopsy for his daughter, whether she developed a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot that settles in the lungs, whether she had a stroke in her brain, ischemic, meaning lack of oxygen, or hemorrhagic, where her brain may have been bleeding. What I have gathered in the information that I've looked at online is that there is so much that is missing from this. Forgery, possible cover-up, conspiracy theory, it doesn't matter. We need to look inside of this young girl's body to see what actually happened to her. Because if she has a pulmonary embolus, we'll be able to see that on an autopsy. If she was given too much anesthesia, we'll be able to see that on a toxicology report. If she had cerebral edema, that is going to be evident at the time of autopsy. When they do the head dissection and they reflect that scalp, they're going to be able to see if there was any trauma to her skull, any trauma to her brain, if there's any bleeding there. So the autopsy report is going to be so important, and this dad should not stop until he gets that autopsy report. So everybody else, they can be quiet. Let's see what the autopsy says.
You seem very confident that they will get answers if an autopsy is performed correctly. Is there a possibility that the cause of death could be indeterminate, that it may too many complicating factors, we won't know exactly what happened to this girl? Maybe there could be assumptions, maybe there'll be supporting evidence of some kind, but strictly the autopsy, how confident are you that will provide the answers that the family's looking for?
Well, based on the information that we have access to, they say that she's got cerebral edema. They say she had COVID-19. You can do a postmortem COVID-19 test. That's very simple. That's a swab, just like you would do on a person who's alive. If she has cerebral edema, that is going to be evident when they weigh her brain. They're going to be able to see fluid and swelling in her brain. That doesn't go away just because someone passes away. If there are any ischemic areas where there's tissue that has started to discolor or die because of a lack of blood flow, we're going to be able to see that. If she was in the hospital and she was receiving any sort of vasopressive therapy, medication that shunts blood to those major organs, those things are going to be present in her system. So again, I'm confident that the autopsy, if done correctly, is going to give us some answers. Will it give us her actual cause of death? I'm not certain about that, but I know that we can glean a lot from getting that autopsy and the toxicology done.
Now, the Durango State Commission for Health Risk Protection announced that it is doing its own parallel investigation, and they released some information about the clinic where the surgery allegedly took place, saying that while the clinic was practically brand new, it had all the necessary permits and licenses, and according to the commission, Paloma Jasmine signed paperwork authorizing the cosmetic procedure. By the way, which brings us to the big question, is it illegal to perform cosmetic procedures like this on a minor? The answer appears to be no. The president of the Board of Government and Political Coordination told reporters that currently there's no ban for young people as long as at least one parent gives their permission. El Siglo de Durango reports that Mexican Senator Margarita Valdez plans to take legislative action prohibiting unnecessary cosmetic surgeries on people under the age of 21. She pointed out that the Senate banned child marriages and should ban this too. Durango Informativo reported comments from Durango Governor Esteban Villegas Villarreal. He said Wednesday that he sympathizes with Carlos. Quote, "If I were in his shoes and I hadn't been informed about what was happening with my daughter, it would be a very complex topic. I want to tell dad, family, and friends that there will be no impunity, justice will be served, and the whole process will be transparent." And even the most prominent Mexican officials are weighing in on this story. During a news conference earlier this week, Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo, told reporters that the government would be glad to look over the case and make sure justice is done for Paloma Nicole. Now, Carlos has been a loud voice in the call for change. There was a march that was planned for this weekend with the focus on helping girls feel safe and comfortable in their own skin. In a post on Instagram under the slogan, "Girls Don't Need Implants," Carlos wrote in a translation from Spanish to English, "We cannot continue to normalize the sexualization of girls or allow the ambition of some adults to put their lives at risk. We demand justice and that this crime does not go unpunished. Girls deserve to grow up free, safe, and respected." An Arizona Central article took a closer look at plastic surgery stats here in the United States, too. According to data they looked at from the American Society of Plastic Surgeons in 1996, 14,000 cosmetic procedures were performed on teen patients. That number jumped to more than 286,000 by 2024. And of those, most were minimally invasive, but more than 23,000 were full-blown surgical procedures. That's according to the medical group. So, Dr. Rutherford, as we continue this case, we look into it, do those numbers alarm you? And how many times have you seen cases where it is complications from medical procedures like this that contribute to someone's death?
We see complications from medical procedures all the time, whether someone's getting a cardiac cath done because they're having a heart attack, whether someone is going in for implant surgery or a nose job or whatever it is. We see complications from these types of surgeries because general anesthesia, putting someone under, you are decreasing their respiratory rate, you are putting them in harm's way. And yes, that's why you sign informed consent here in the US. Before a procedure is done, you take what's called a time out and you make sure it's the right patient, the right body part, the right procedure, the right physician. And does a patient understand that when you undergo general anesthesia, that you have the risk of having hyperthermia, where you can get a fatal fever that happens as a result of this type of procedure, that you can have respiratory complications because they have a tube down your throat. There are so many different things that can happen when you're under anesthesia. And if you are signing an informed consent and you understand the risk that you're undertaking, sure, but parents should be involved in those decisions. So why was her father left out of the decision? And why was this woman's boyfriend, who's a plastic surgeon, allowed to, I guess, facilitate this type of surgery under this mom's directive?
The allegations are disturbing, to say the least, and hearts and prayers go out to this family trying to make sense of what happened here. Really, really tragic situation. Dr. Naida Rutherford, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll see you next time.